What if the Cold War was not about heroes at all, but about exhaustion? While flashy spies stole the spotlight, another kind of film was quietly unfolding in Britain. Stories where nobody felt safe, victories felt hollow, and silence was louder than action. Halfway through this list, one pattern becomes impossible to ignore. These films were not forgotten by accident. They were ignored because they felt too real, and that makes them harder to shake. Number 15. Danger Route, 1967. This film opens like a routine assignment and slowly reveals how disposable its hero really is. Danger Route follows a British agent sent across Europe to carry information that everyone wants and no one wants to protect. From the first scene, the tone is uneasy. Conversations are clipped, instructions are vague, and the people giving orders never seem to answer questions directly. Richard Johnson plays the lead not as a fearless professional, but as a man constantly measuring risk against survival. He knows he is being watched, but never knows by whom. Hotels feel temporary. Streets feel staged. Even friendly faces seem to carry an expiration date. The Cold War here is not loud. It is administrative. Men in offices move pieces without ever touching the board. What makes Danger Route stand out is its refusal to provide comfort. There are no clear allies. There is no moment where everything clicks into place. Each step forward feels like walking deeper into a system designed to erase mistakes quietly. The European locations add to the unease with empty streets and bland interiors that feel stripped of warmth. Audiences at the time wanted certainty. Danger Route offered ambiguity. That is why it slipped away. Watching it now, it feels startlingly modern. A story where loyalty is temporary, information is currency, and the person carrying it matters the least. It is not thrilling in the traditional sense. It is unsettling, and that was the point. Number 14. Masquerade, 1965. Masquerade looks bright on the surface, then quietly pulls the floor out from under you. Set against sunlit locations and international intrigue, this film initially feels lighter than its peers. But do not be fooled. Beneath the polished exterior is a story about identity confusion and strategic deception, where nothing stays stable for long. Cliff Robertson plays an unwitting participant pulled into a complex operation involving Middle Eastern politics and British intelligence interests. What begins as curiosity quickly turns into pressure. He is told what to do, where to go, and who to trust. Then those instructions begin to contradict each other. The genius of Masquerade lies in its pacing. It does not rush. It allows uncertainty to settle in. You start noticing how often characters speak around the truth instead of saying it, how plans shift without explanation, how people vanish from the story without closure. The viewer experiences the same confusion as the lead, and that alignment makes the tension work. When it was released, audiences struggled to place it. It was not glamorous enough to compete with bigger spy franchises and not bleak enough to signal realism at first glance. Over time, its reputation faded. But seen today, Masquerade feels like a warning. In the Cold War, appearances were tools. And the most dangerous role you could play was thinking you understood the part you were given. Number 13. The File of the Golden Goose, 1969. This is espionage at its quietest, where money speaks louder than ideology. The File of the Golden Goose follows British intelligence efforts to disrupt foreign financial channels using patience instead of pressure. There are no dramatic confrontations here, just offices, ledgers, and conversations that sound ordinary but carry real weight. It feels slow at first, then quietly gripping. Kenneth More delivers a measured performance as an officer who understands that influence often hides in paperwork. Meetings replace chases. Documents replace danger. Every exchange feels deliberate. You sense that a single error could undo months of work, yet no one would ever know who caused it. The film's power comes from restraint. Watching systems unravel piece by piece becomes its own form of tension. The stakes feel higher because they are invisible. Nothing explodes. Nothing announces success or failure. Silence is the outcome. When it was released, audiences struggled with its focus on process. It demanded attention instead of excitement. That made it easy to overlook. Today, that same quality makes it feel honest. The film reminds us that the Cold War was not just about borders. It was about influence, and sometimes the quietest moves mattered most. Number 12. The Naked Runner, 1967. What happens when intelligence work drags an ordinary life into chaos? The Naked Runner begins with a man who wants nothing to do with global conflict. Frank Sinatra plays a British expatriate living peacefully in Germany. That calm is shattered when a past incident is quietly used to pull him into an operation he never agreed to join. This is not a transformation story. He does not become a spy. Instead, his normal life slowly erodes. He is monitored, guided, and pressured. Each step is explained as necessary, yet none of it feels fair. The tension comes from watching his control disappear. The film avoids big statements. It focuses on isolation. Familiar streets feel hostile. Conversations feel layered with meaning. Trust drains away quickly. Sinatra's restrained performance keeps the story grounded. Nothing feels exaggerated. That realism makes it unsettling. Audiences at the time found the film uncomfortable because it felt too close to real life, too personal. That discomfort pushed it aside. Watching it now, The Naked Runner feels relevant. It shows how intelligence systems do not require loyalty. They require leverage, and once they have it, escape becomes uncertain. Number 11. The High Bright Sun, 1964. This film hides a Cold War story inside a mystery that feels deceptively simple. Set in Cyprus during political tension, The High Bright Sun begins with an investigation into a missing official. What appears straightforward quickly becomes layered. Interests overlap. Loyalties fracture. Truth shifts depending on who controls the narrative. Dirk Bogarde anchors the film with quiet authority. His character speaks carefully, listens closely, and waits for cracks to appear. That patience mirrors the setting itself. Cyprus is shown as beautiful but unstable, a place shaped by history and uncertainty. The film uses atmosphere rather than spectacle. Streets feel watchful, conversations feel measured. Global politics seep into everyday life without announcement. Nothing exists in isolation. When released, it was sold as a mystery instead of a spy story, which likely caused it to slip away. But that misdirection works in its favor. The High Bright Sun understands that espionage often hides behind ordinary investigations, and sometimes the most important secrets are uncovered by people who never intended to find them. Number 10. The Third Secret, 1964. This film begins with a question nobody wants answered and ends by proving why. The Third Secret opens with the sudden passing of a respected British official. The explanation is neat, official, and accepted by everyone who benefits from it. Everyone except one man. Stephen Boyd plays a journalist who senses that the story is too clean to be true. As he digs deeper, the film slowly shifts from mystery into something far more uneasy. Conversations feel rehearsed. Files disappear. People offer help that feels conditional. The closer Boyd gets to the truth, the more isolated he becomes. This is not a story about action. It is about pressure, emotional pressure, professional pressure, and the unspoken understanding that some questions are dangerous simply because they exist. What makes The Third Secret powerful is its restraint. The film never rushes to reveal its hand. Instead, it lets doubt grow naturally. You begin to realize that the Cold War is not always fought between nations. Sometimes it is fought within institutions that claim to protect truth while quietly reshaping it. Audiences in the 60s expected sharper edges. This film offered quiet erosion instead. That subtlety caused it to fade, but watching it now, it feels disturbingly current. A reminder that secrets do not survive because they are strong. They survive because people are afraid of what happens when they are exposed. Number 9. The Whisperers, 1967. Espionage usually centers on those in control. This film looks at those left behind. The Whisperers tells its story from the margins. Edith Evans plays an elderly woman living alone in London, overwhelmed by fear and suspicion. At first, her anxieties seem personal. Then the film slowly reveals how intelligence services exploit people like her without ever acknowledging the cost. Her character overhears things, notices patterns, feels watched. Instead of being protected, she is observed, evaluated, used. The brilliance of the film lies in how it links national security to personal neglect. Intelligence work here is not glamorous. It is indifferent. The Cold War becomes a background hum rather than a central plot device. Government interest enters her life quietly, offering attention instead of safety. Evans delivers a performance that is deeply human, making the system around her feel even colder by contrast. When it was released, audiences did not know what to make of it. It did not look like a spy thriller. It did not feel heroic. But that is exactly why it matters. The Whisperers exposes the emotional fallout of intelligence culture. It reminds us that while nations protect themselves, individuals often absorb the damage silently. That silence is what makes the film linger long after it ends. Number 8. The Man Who Finally Died, 1963. This film turns personal history into a geopolitical puzzle. Stanley Baker plays a man who receives news that his father has passed away. The problem is simple. His father was believed to have passed away years earlier. Returning to Europe, Baker's character begins piecing together a past that was deliberately erased. What starts as a family mystery slowly reveals connections to post-war intelligence operations and hidden allegiances. Each revelation feels smaller than expected, yet heavier. The film understands that truth does not always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it creeps in, detail by detail, until denial becomes impossible. The European setting is essential. Cities feel worn. People carry unspoken histories. Nobody fully trusts anyone else because trust was once a liability. Baker plays the role with quiet intensity, never pushing emotion too far. His restraint matches the story's tone. The Man Who Finally Died struggled to find an audience because it refused to simplify. It demanded patience, but that patience pays off. The film shows how the Cold War lingered long after the fighting stopped. It lived on in false names, missing records, and families who never received answers. Number 7. The Deadly Bees, 1967. This film disguises its unease behind rural calm. Set on a remote British island, The Deadly Bees initially feels like a small mystery. A woman arrives seeking rest. What she finds instead is isolation, strange behavior, and a growing sense that nothing on the island is accidental. While not a traditional spy film on the surface, the Cold War anxiety is unmistakable. Surveillance, experiments, unspoken motives. The threat is never fully explained, which makes it more unsettling. The island becomes a closed system where control is absolute and oversight is non-existent. The film uses atmosphere instead of exposition. Long silences replace dialogue. The natural setting feels controlled rather than free. Characters speak carefully as if every word might be noted. Audiences expecting clarity were confused. But that confusion mirrors the experience of the protagonist. The Deadly Bees is about systems operating beyond public view. It suggests that danger does not always announce itself. Sometimes it hums quietly in places meant to feel safe. That implication makes the film more disturbing than louder stories of the era. Number 6. The Bedford Incident, 1965. This is a Cold War story where pride becomes the real threat. Set almost entirely aboard a naval vessel in icy waters, the Bedford Incident traps its characters in a pressure cooker of authority and obsession. Richard Widmark plays a commanding officer fixated on proving dominance, even as consequences loom. Sidney Poitier serves as the audience's anchor, observing events with growing concern. Through his perspective, the film exposes how rigid thinking can become dangerous when combined with power. Orders are followed, doubts are ignored, momentum replaces reason. There are no heroes here, only professionals caught in a system that rewards certainty over caution. The tension builds not through action, but through inevitability. You sense early on that restraint is slipping away, yet nobody knows how to stop it. When it premiered, the ending unsettled viewers. It offered no relief. That discomfort pushed it aside. But today, the Bedford Incident feels essential. It captures the Cold War as a test of restraint, and it asks a hard question: what happens when the people in charge stop listening? Number 5. Billion-Dollar Brain, 1967. This is the moment when Cold War fear tips into something almost unreal. Billion-Dollar Brain brings back Harry Palmer, but the world around him feels louder, stranger, and more unhinged. The plot revolves around a private operation driven by money, technology, and obsession rather than national loyalty. That shift is deliberate. The film suggests the Cold War had started slipping out of official control. Michael Caine plays Palmer with his usual irritation and skepticism. He never fully believes what he is told, and that instinct keeps him alive. Around him, others chase grand ideas about power and dominance, convinced that information alone can reshape the world. The locations are striking. Frozen landscapes, isolated facilities, places that feel detached from normal life. They reinforce the sense that this story exists on the edge of reason. Yet Palmer remains grounded, constantly questioning motives and rolling his eyes at ambition dressed up as strategy. Audiences at the time were unsure how to react. It was too strange to be comfortable, too cynical to be thrilling, but that imbalance is what makes it work now. Billion-Dollar Brain shows how fear, funding, and ego can combine into something dangerous long before anyone notices it has gone too far. Number 4. The Ipcress File, 1965. This film changed how British espionage looked and felt. The Ipcress File introduces Harry Palmer as the opposite of a polished hero. He cooks his own meals, complains about authority, questions orders openly, and that attitude becomes the film's sharpest edge. Set in drab offices and cramped apartments, the story focuses on missing experts and intelligence work that feels improvised rather than confident. Palmer navigates a workplace where class tension is just as present as foreign threats. Superiors talk down to him. Colleagues withhold information. Nobody seems honest. The film's visual style reinforces its mood. Framing is tight. Faces are partially hidden. Conversations feel overheard rather than staged. It creates constant unease, as if the viewer is never allowed full access to the truth. When released, it surprised audiences expecting glamour. Instead, it delivered frustration and realism. Over time, its influence grew quietly. The Ipcress File proved that espionage could be ordinary and still gripping. It suggested that intelligence work was less about brilliance and more about endurance. That idea reshaped the genre and still echoes today. Number 3. Funeral in Berlin, 1966. Berlin is not just a location here, it is a warning. Funeral in Berlin drops Harry Palmer into a divided city, where every crossing feels temporary and every promise feels conditional. The mission involves extracting a defector, but the details keep shifting. Plans overlap. Interests collide. Trust dissolves quickly. Palmer's strength is his awareness. He knows he is expendable. He knows deals can change without notice. That awareness makes him cautious, sarcastic, and human. Michael Caine plays him as someone constantly measuring risk rather than chasing glory. The film thrives on atmosphere. Empty streets, concrete barriers, conversations held in half-lit rooms. Berlin feels like a place designed to watch itself. Director Guy Hamilton keeps the tension quiet, allowing suspicion to do the heavy lifting. While overshadowed by louder franchises, Funeral in Berlin endures because of its honesty. It shows espionage as negotiation rather than conquest. And it reminds you that in the Cold War, survival often depended on knowing when to stop trusting the story you were being told. Number 2. The Deadly Affair, 1966. This is espionage stripped down to fatigue and doubt. James Mason plays a British intelligence officer investigating the quiet passing of a colleague. The explanation is convenient. Too convenient. As he digs deeper, the film reveals a network built on half-truths and emotional neglect. Mason's performance is subdued and heavy. He moves like a man worn down by years of compromise. Offices feel oppressive. London looks drained of color. Even personal relationships carry tension, as if honesty has become a liability. The film refuses to rush. It lets unease accumulate. Every pause matters. Every glance feels loaded. The Cold War here is not about confrontation. It is about erosion of trust, of loyalty, of certainty. Audiences expecting resolution were disappointed. There are no triumphant moments, only understanding. That lack of comfort caused the film to fade, but it is precisely what makes it powerful now. The deadly affair shows intelligence work as emotional damage quietly passed along. It does not celebrate the system. It exposes its cost. Number 1. The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, 1965. This film ends the argument about what Cold War espionage really looked like. Richard Burton plays a British agent sent on one last operation. He is tired, bitter, disillusioned, and that exhaustion defines the entire film. Nothing feels heroic. Every decision feels compromised. Set in gray streets and stark interiors, the story unfolds like a slow collapse. Plans reveal deeper plans. Truth becomes flexible. Loyalty is revealed as temporary. Burton's performance is restrained but devastating, capturing a man who understands too late what the system demands. Audiences at the time were unsettled. Where was the escape? Where was the victory? Instead, they were given reflection. The film forced viewers to confront the moral emptiness beneath strategic language. Today, it stands as one of the most honest portrayals of espionage ever filmed, not because it explains everything, but because it refuses to soften the truth. The Cold War was not clean, and neither were the choices it required. So maybe these films were not forgotten because they failed. Maybe they were ignored because they refused to lie. No easy wins, no comfort, just pressure, doubt, and quiet consequences. If one of these stories stayed with you, say which one in the comments. Share this with someone who thinks spy films are only about style. And remember, the coldest battles were often fought without noise, applause, or closure.